This is the Moto X, the first venture for Motorola since its acquisition by Google. The Android space is flooded with manufacturers competing head-to-head, with the focus being on pushing specifications as far as they'll go. But Motorola took a detour on its way to Google headquarters, stating that user experience and customizability are the focus of a flagship device. Does Motorola succeed? Let's find out now in the full review of the Moto X. The Moto X design is simple. There's a power button on the right side along with the volume rocker, the appropriate sensors on the front with the front-facing camera, and the primary microphone placement is on the bottom of the screen this time, and on the bottom you will find a micro USB port, and up top you will find a 3.5mm headphone jack with a noise cancelling mic. And on the back, you will find the 10 megapixel clear pixel camera with a LED flash and a rear-facing speaker. When you power on the Moto X, you will be greeted by its mid-range spec 720p display. But it's an AMOLED panel this time around, and we'll go over the advantages of this screen technology later in the review. It's not the specs that capture your attention when you grab the Moto X, it's the pure size of the device and the way it feels in the hand. The Moto X has a 4.7-inch display and the iPhone 5S has a 4-inch display. And the Moto X manages to fit this whole package into a very compact handset and is very easy to operate with just one hand. It's a feat that most Android manufacturers have not been able to accomplish in a long time. So let's look at the Moto X next to the Oppo R819, which also has a 4.7-inch display, but it's much wider and taller. So it's amazing what Motorola has been able to do with this Moto X in design. What this translates to in a nutshell is that this is one of the best feel-in-the-hand devices on the market right now. The plastic is nice with the matte finish depending on what choice you make in Moto Maker, and the curvature of the back just makes it so comfortable to hold in the hand, making you just want to grab this handset. The Motorola symbol has a perfect dip below the flash that just gives you a great reference point for finger placement while holding the phone, and I just love this design. It's one of the best, hands down. Now, that Moto Maker that I mentioned earlier is on the website where you can custom design your new Moto X via the website and choose from an array of colors on your back, including wood, which is interesting, and your wallpaper when you boot it up, white or black front, and accent colors for your buttons. It's a very cool concept. The downside is that it's not available on every carrier yet, but it may be by the time that you're watching this video. So what's powering this thing? It's what Motorola calls the X8 computing system, which is just a dual-core Snapdragon S4 Pro processor running alongside a quad-core graphics chip. But what's unique is that there are two other cores just for contextual awareness and language processing, and we'll go over that later in the review. And I know many of you are probably saying, dual-core processor? Are you serious? In the world of quad-core processors, the benchmarks confirm your fears of this just being an ordinary mid-range device. But trust me, you can't always believe the benchmarks because the performance is the total opposite of these numbers. I think that has to do with many factors, but one of the reasons is that the Moto X runs near a stock version of Android without heavy skins bogging it down, and even though this is running Android 4.2 at the time, it's just blazing fast. I mean, from everything from internet browsing to scrolling, navigation, just around the UI, there are very little lags at all, and you would swear that this thing has the highest specs that money can buy. And even gaming is very smooth on the Moto X, and its Adreno 320 graphics just has no problem running these games at all. I mean, look at Riptide 2, the frame rates are extremely smooth, and I don't think you'll have any problems gaming on the Moto X. The most interesting thing about the X8 computing system is those two extra cores, and there are no more notification lights. You are greeted by this super inky black AMOLED screen, and the notifications are displayed right on the screen. So when you pick up your phone, it gives you a glimpse of your notifications, and you can act accordingly or unlock your device. All of this happens without the sacrifices in battery life due to those separate cores on the X8. So this to me was the best experience of a notification system that I've used yet. So I think this is just simply amazing. Another benefit to the X8 is that the Moto X is always listening. You can command the Moto X by just saying, "Okay Google Now," and access all of Google Now's features. You just voice prompt it. So here's an example. "Okay Google Now, what's the weather like today?"
Today's forecast for Spring Hill is 70 degrees and partly cloudy.
Google Now has added a few features like Find My Moto X, but you are limited to the function of Google Now. But I found the Moto X to be very smart, so I asked it a few questions that I've been dying to know. "Okay Google Now, how can I become a better tech reviewer?"
Be more like MKBHD.
Let's try another one. "Okay Google Now, how do I get more views on my YouTube channel?"
Make videos like Detroit Borg and also like TLD today.
See, I told you Google Now is smart. But anyway, another cool feature is the way you open the Moto X camera. All you have to do is give it a few shakes and it activates the camera. I don't know if you're going to really use this or not. It was pretty consistent. Sometimes it doesn't work, but you can always open it the traditional way if you don't want to open it that way. The camera has been getting a lot of bad press for taking terrible pictures, but Motorola put out a software update to better the performance of its 10 megapixel ClearPixel camera. So the camera interface is very simple and it's limited in function, but that's exactly what Motorola wanted, was to simplify this picture taking process. And they did a pretty good job, so you just pretty much point and shoot. So what did this update do for the camera? Well, let's take a look at the sample images and video right now. So the images have been greatly improved with the update on the Moto X. I only took a few pictures before the update, but I know that I wasn't that impressed with the camera. Now the update doesn't make it the best camera on the market, but it makes leaps and bounds over the old camera firmware. And the saturation still is a little bit off, but the macro focus is better, and I think that the contrast is better, and that's an HDR shot right there, and I think the HDR is a little bit improved as well. But this is exactly what you would expect from a mid-range or high-range camera right now, and I think it produces some decent details, and I think that it takes some good pictures, so I don't think you will be disappointed in the Moto X camera at all. So if that's what was keeping you from buying the Moto X, I'd go ahead and purchase the Moto X. But the dynamic range was still not as good, so I think there's some improvements to be done here, but I think that the pictures are very passable. I mean, let me know what you think in the comments below. I mean, I was pretty impressed with the Moto X camera because I just heard how bad it is. But the low light performance, it is improved, but in darker conditions, you're still going to see a lot of grain, but that's exactly what you'd expect from a mobile camera these days, besides something like the Nokia Lumia 1020. But there's some shots under fluorescent light, and it's not bad at all. What do you think? The Moto X also takes 1080p video, and I think the 1080p video is actually pretty good. It's got good contrast, good sharpness to the video, and I don't think you'll be disappointed at all in the 1080p video. And I didn't see any skips or anything like that while I was recording. And it also has a pretty good depth of field as evidenced by this video right here. So 1080p video, I think it's a pass on the Moto X. So let's touch on the call quality. This is a Sprint version of the Moto X, and it performed well on their network, but it depends on the carrier of your choice. But let me tell you something, this is one of the best earpieces that I've heard on a phone in a long time. Extremely clear voices, loud earpiece, and people said I sounded amazing on the other side. And I just couldn't believe the call quality on the Moto X. I mean, you will enjoy making phone calls again. So it is that good, seriously. So what do I think of the Moto X? I think it proves that specs are not everything. Motorola managed to give mid-range specs to their flagship device and make it perform like a boss. The design is fantastic, and the feeling in the hand is just amazing. And now the battery is only 2200 milliamps, but it is an all-day battery, and I couldn't believe the battery life. I think that has a lot to do with the X8 computing system. And this is serious. If you use this very moderately, you can get 2 days out of the device because of its amazing standby time. But the Moto X is not perfect. Pixel junkies will notice the 720p display, and even though I didn't find it to be a problem at all, it was sharp enough and I thought the colors were great, and it's a little bit hard to see in the sunlight, but that's just a trait of an AMOLED display. And there is no micro SD card support, and some will be disappointed in the 32GB maximum storage capacity. But if you can get over those last few things, then I can for sure recommend the Moto X. It is a beautiful device that has put the user experience first and specs last, and I appreciate that. So I commend you, Motorola. I look forward to more future devices with Google. Alright, well that does it for me in my review of the Moto X. So if you enjoyed this review, please give me a thumbs up and make sure you subscribe to my channel so you don't miss any more videos like this, and follow me on Twitter at SuperScientific. And I thank you for the support, thanks for watching, and let me know what you think about the Moto X.